The introductory lecture on strategic management essentials is based on the textbook Strategic Management, a Competitive Advantage Approach, Concepts and Cases by F.R. David and F.R. David. And I'm using that as a reference book for this set of slides. The learning objectives of this session is to describe the strategic management process, discuss the 3 stages of strategy formulation, implementation, and evaluation activities, explain the need for integrating analysis and intuition in strategic management, define and give examples of key terms in strategic management. Now, the first term that we are going to look at is a definition of the term strategic management. Now, many of us have come across this term. Basically, this term means that the management approach used in formulating, implementing, and evaluating cross-functional decisions that enable an organization to achieve its objectives. Now, what do we mean by cross-functional decisions is that in an organization, there are several departments. You have the human resource department, you have the accounting department, you have the finance department, you have the production department. So in strategic management, decisions are made across different functions for the benefit of the organization as a whole. Such decisions are called cross-functional decisions. Now, in defining strategic management, a key element that we need to think about is strategic planning. And strategic planning is important because it provides the bedrock or the foundation for organizations to formulate their strategies, to implement their strategies, and to evaluate the results of the actions taken in the pursuance of those strategies. Now, a strategic plan is basically a company's game plan. It will reflect the organization's commitment to meeting the needs of the market, as well as the policies, procedures, and operations put in place to achieve objectives. Now, the stages of strategic management can be divided into 3 key parts. They are strategy formulation, strategy implementation, and strategy evaluation. Now, let's go through each of these parts to understand the concepts involved. The first part is called strategy formulation, which comprises of the development of a vision for the organization, and with the vision comes the mission on how the vision is going to be achieved. Now, in this process, the organization's managers must also consider several elements, including what are the external opportunities and threats, what are the internal strengths and weaknesses of the organization. They need to also establish the long-term objectives. Now, what we mean by long-term objectives is any objective that is more than 1 year. Now, in the pursuit of the vision and mission, the organization also needs to generate alternative strategies that it wishes to pursue, and which are the strategies that they have decided to pursue in order to achieve the vision and mission of the organization. Now, strategy formulation decisions come in different sizes, different elements. And the core elements that you look at include things like what new businesses the organization wants to enter into, or even what are the businesses or operations that it wishes to abandon. In the event that the organization wants to diversify, how they are going to diversify, how they are going to expand their operations, how or actions taken to enter international markets, if the organization wants to merge with another organization or enter into some form of joint venture, and if the organization is subject to a hostile takeover, what efforts can it take to address concerns pertaining to this? Now, in the strategy implementation stage, the decision makers have to think about things like annual objectives, devise different policies, motivate employees, allocate resources, formulate strategies that they wish to execute. And this strategy implementation deals with the action stage. Whatever plans that were made at the strategy formulation stage are now brought into the action stage for these to be implemented. Now, at the strategy evaluation stage, here the focus is to identify if the strategies that were put into action are working well for the organization. Here they are looking at the results. They are evaluating the results to see whether any form of corrective action needs to be taken. Now, there are some key terms that managers need to be familiar with in formulating strategies and implementing these strategies. First term, and one of the more important one, is competitive advantage. Okay, now, what is competitive advantage? It is any activity that distinguishes an organization from its competitors. Okay, or any resource that an organization has which is more outstanding, better than what rival firms possess. So a firm must strive to not only acquire these competitive advantage, but sustain and continue to work on them. A good example here will be McDonald's. Many people that I've spoken to enjoy the burgers from McDonald's. One of the reasons that they say that McDonald's burgers are good or tasty, and the other reason is that they always come up with new innovative products. Okay, so this distinguishes McDonald's from all the other competitors, and therefore we term this as a competitive advantage. Now, the strategists of the organization, the people who formulate the strategies, okay, they need to have data, they need to have information, they need to not only formulate strategies, but also analyze and organize information so that other people, other stakeholders are also informed about what is happening, okay, pertaining to the company's activities. Now, I did mention to you about vision and mission statements. So in a vision statement, the question that we are trying to answer is, what do we want to become? What does the organization want to achieve? So it can be said to be a mental picture of a future state that the organization wishes to achieve. Now, in a mission statement, the organization is trying to answer the question, what is our business? Okay. Now, besides this, you also come across terms like external opportunities and threats. Now, when we talk about external opportunities and threats, these are opportunities and threats that arise from the external environment of the organization. So it can come from economic sources, social, cultural, demographic, political, legal, governmental initiatives, technological. A good example of this is COVID-19, which is now creating a threat to many businesses. Okay, for example, the airline industry, the hospitality industry is affected by COVID-19. But at the same time, certain other businesses look at COVID-19 as an external opportunity. A good example is Top Glove, one of the leading glove makers in the world, which has seen its profit grow tremendously in leaps and bounds over the past 1 to 2 years because of COVID-19. Now, when we look at internal strengths and weaknesses of a company, here we are identifying what are the strengths of the company in relation to its competitors. The same thing with weaknesses. Okay, in identifying the weaknesses of an organization, we are trying to identify what distinguishes a competitor in terms of the services, the products that it offers to customers in relation to the company that we are analyzing. Now, some examples of opportunities and threats include things like availability of capital granted by, for example, government initiatives. Consumers expect green operations and products, marketing moving rapidly to the internet, commodity food prices increasing inflation, and oversupply of oil driving oil and gas prices down, or alternatively, as we see now, that an undersupply of oil or lack of oil in the world market is driving up prices of oil and gas. Now, in terms of long-term objectives, here we are looking at the objectives of the organization that are made in respect of a time span of more than 1 year. Okay. Now, strategies, as I mentioned to you earlier, basically these are how organizations put, or actions that organizations put in place to achieve the objectives. So therefore, in achieving the long-term objectives, the actions that are taken by the organization in pursuit of these objectives, we call these strategies. So strategies can also come in different shapes and sizes. So they have different types of strategies, including geographic expansion, diversification, acquisition, product development, market penetration, retrenchment, which we see very often happening nowadays due to COVID-19, or companies closing down due to divestiture or liquidation, or companies being merged into other entities because they are not able to sustain their operations. Now, organizations may also come up with their own annual objectives. Okay, annual objectives are basically objectives for a fixed time period of 1 year, which are measurable, quantitative, challenging, realistic, consistent, and prioritized. Now, this gives the ability of the organization, a tangible means to the organization to measure the performance of their business units and their employees. Policies, on the other hand, help the organization put into place action in order to achieve their annual objectives. We've come to the end of this presentation, this introductory presentation on strategic management. Thank you.